Hi, my name is Bill Nettles. I'm the United States Attorney for the District of South Carolina. I want to thank all of y'all for being here to start with. And secondly, I think it's one of the most important things to talk about here is that this review that is getting ready to take place by the COPS program at the Department of Justice has been asked for by two distinct groups of people. One, the community has asked for it, and we've heard what the community has had to say. Secondly, it's also important to point out that the mayor and the chief have asked for this investigation. So the community, the mayor, and the chief have all asked for the investigation by the Department of Justice COPS program. And that review will begin immediately. The important thing to know about this review is this. At the conclusion of the review, well, let's talk about the process. During the review, the members of the COPS program from the Department of Justice will look at the policies and procedures of the North Charleston Police Department. And very importantly, too, they will spend a lot of time speaking to the community. There'll be plenty of opportunity for the community to provide input. There will be review of the process that is going on here. And the other thing I want to point out that's very important is at the conclusion of the review, there will be a report. And that report will be made public. And that's important for two reasons. Number one, the community will have an opportunity to review and look at the report and see what has been found during the review. The second thing is the community will have an opportunity to take note of Madison, Wisconsin, but works with the DOJ COPS program, and he is the Chief of Police Procedures and Policy Review. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, U.S. Attorney Nettles. I've got some prepared comments, and again, I will also be available for some questions later on, but I'd like to go through these because there are a number of questions that you have, and I want to make sure that I hit all of them. But before I do that, let me thank you all for being here. Just a reflection of the response of the media that this is an important issue for North Charleston. So let me start by saying today we're here to formally announce the launch of the collaborative reform process with the North Charleston Police Department. As most of you are probably aware, we received a request in April from the chief and the mayor to begin this process here. In our review, in the continuum of services the Department of Justice has to offer, it was determined that the collaborative reform process was the best course of action to assist the North Charleston Police Department. A little bit about the process itself. Since we began the collaborative reform initiative for technical assistance, it's about 4 years ago in the city of Las Vegas, as a result of a number of officer-involved shootings, the COPS Office collaborative reform efforts have developed into a valuable resource nationwide for law enforcement agencies nationwide and communities that they serve. We currently have, at this point, collaborative reform processes in Spokane, Washington, Philadelphia, St. Louis, Salinas, California, Fayetteville, North Carolina, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, San Francisco, Calexico, California. And the process is really picking up. We're getting requests on a weekly basis, and I think we'll have a number of other sites and locations on board before this year is out. Many of the reports also that we have, and I want to mention this, many of the reports, if you want to learn more, are available on the COPS website of these other cities. The collaborative reform initiative that we will embark here today is indeed that. It is a collaboration. It is important to note that this is independent. It is an objective assessment that the police department has entered into willingly, and with their cooperation, it is critical for this particular process to be successful. The Purpose of the collaborative reform process is to improve trust between the agencies and the communities that they serve, and by providing an organization on key issues the opportunity to transform. Let me talk a little bit about that. I have been in conversation with both the U.S. Attorney and the Chief for the last several months. And what was fascinating about my conversations with them, every time I spoke to them, they would always bring up the issue of community policing. And I'll say this, community policing is three things, and most of you will probably be aware of this. It's partnerships, it is proactive problem solving, but more importantly, it is transformation. And that's why we're here today. We're here about the transformational process, and every law enforcement agency in the United States should be about transformation. That is how we improve. We know that the communities change, we know internally things change. And so that's why we are here. It is not a short-term solution for serious deficiencies, but rather a long-term strategy that first identifies issues with an agency that may affect public trust, and then offer specific recommendations based upon a comprehensive assessment for how to resolve those issues and enhance relationships between the department and the communities they serve. Agency participation in this collaborative process is voluntary. I repeat, is voluntary. However, agencies selected to participate must demonstrate a commitment to address the recommendations that we will be submitting forward. I am confident, based upon my conversations with the mayor and the chief and the U.S. attorney and the conversations that we have here, that we'll have good, full partnership in this collaborative process. Following the assessment, the COPS office will issue a public report detailing the findings with specific recommendations. So the U.S. attorney talked about that. So the first thing is that there will be an assessment, there will be findings and recommendations based upon gaps or deficiencies within the department, and we will have recommendations as to how to resolve those. And that will be released in a very transparent manner. We will assess the progress made towards implementing the findings and recommendations at 6-month and at a 12-month. So the entire process takes a little over 2 years. I know it was reported in the paper this morning it's about 3 years, but it's more closer to a little over 2 years. And there are a series of 3 reports in total that will be released. The assessment report, the progress report of the findings and recommendations, and then a final report. All made public, all open for scrutiny to the public so that they can watch this process and ensure that accountability is taking place at the local level. To conduct our work, let's talk a bit about how this will happen. To conduct our work, the COPS office will be enlisting subject matter experts that are among the best and brightest in the field of policing today. They will be conducting interviews with police officers, union officials, command staff, and interested citizens, as well as community leaders and advocates. This is a very inclusive process because our assessment must be informed by both people inside the agency and outside of the agency. The COPS office will also bring in a technical assistance provider to coordinate the review. So there'll be a contractor that will coordinate this review. They will conduct interviews, compile information, and prepare and deliver recommendations for change. Keep in mind, the city will not be asked to contribute any of their own funds to this assessment. We consider this a valuable resource not only for Charleston, but for law enforcement agencies all across the United States. The collaborative reform is an opportunity for agencies that are looking to be progressive, proactive, to step up and acknowledge that there are challenges and concerns that every law enforcement agency faces in the United States. And in the end, they have an opportunity to take part in a transparent process that should improve their practices, strengthen their policies, and improve the relationships between their community. So I will end my comments there. I believe it is Mayor Somi that is next. And again, willing to take comments later on. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you, Chief. We feel very privileged to have someone of the caliber of Chief Noble that will be leading this program for us. In our conversations, we have acknowledged that we think we have a good police department. But I don't think anytime you're able to get a review of what you do, to look if you need to do changes from someone that is sitting at a different level than you are, it helps you then to make the changes that you need to be a great police department. And that's our ultimate goal, is to enhance the quality of life of all of our citizens, develop a better relationship within the community, and we're more than willing to take recommendations from DOJ to help us accomplish that. You know, we have been on a long ride. I've been here 21 years now as mayor. I've got 3.5 left in this term, and my goal is to get these ideas and concepts in place before I decide whether I'm going to run again or retire. But it's an opportunity for us to look at ourselves by having other people look at us. And if there's ways that we can enhance and improve community relationships, there's ways that we can enhance and improve law enforcement in general, we will be more than happy to implement those changes. We're just very proud that our offer and asking has been accepted by DOJ to come in and work with us to try to make us better. And we know that there will be costs at the end, not in the planning stage, but at the end there will be costs to implement a lot of this. We're willing to sit down and work those things so that it becomes a reality once we get the concepts and ideas. And thank y'all for being here today.
And I won't be long. I think it's important for us to realize where we are today and where we need to be in our future for our kids. And it's about the future. It is what we do today that will impact tomorrow. And we are honored to be part of this collaborative reform initiative and look forward to what the report and reviews will be. And I have been informed by the mayor from the beginning that the city and the council, the mayor is behind this 100%. And like Noble said, it is a voluntary process. And we are standing here in front of you today saying that we volunteered for this and are moving forward to the future of the citizens in North Charleston. Thank you.
We're going to open up for Q&A now. Please direct your questions to one of the four gentlemen here. Also, don't forget to identify your name and your outlet so we can make sure to follow up. Thanks.
I'm Bruce Smith with the Associated Press. What happens, sir, sure. What happens, I mean, it says the department is, you want people willing to implement the recommendations. What happens if there's recommendations there that they say we just can't do? I mean, have you run into that?
We have not run into that, at least as of yet. This is the 11th collaborative reform site in the United States. We have not run into that. We think we've been out here. We do an assessment, and the assessment is this. One is we look at the police leadership. Do they have the capacity? Two, we look at local governmental support, because some of these recommendations will require resources and funding, et cetera. The third thing that we look at is kind of the internal, making sure that the rank and file officers know and understand. But probably the fourth thing, which is so vitally important in this process, and that is the level of community involvement, the community engagement, the community concern. Because although this is a voluntary process, it is the eyes of the community that keeps this an accountable process. And that's why that is so important. And that was part of our assessment, and we think they'll be successful in moving these forward.
I'm Stacey Bishop from the local agency over here. Can you explain how you guys, if you're more facilitators or if you're going to be initiating some of the change, like how these changes actually get put into practice?
No, good question. First of all, we do the assessment, and that's the team.
Is that the 1 year?
That's the 6 to 8 months we'll have an assessment that we'll provide to the community, and that will be a set of findings and recommendations. Those findings and recommendations in other communities have been anything from use of force, internal investigations, training, implicit bias training. It could be a whole host of things from recruitment to hiring. So we will do that. But once we do that, we don't walk away. What we do is we provide experts and technical assistance and support to help that agency move through those findings and recommendations. We also monitor their progress as they're moving forward, so that after that 6 to 8 months, there's another report that will be released in 6 months, so the community and the department can see how they're progressing with this. We just had a 6-month report released in Philadelphia back in December, and if you go online, you can see how the Philadelphia Police Department, who was going through a similar process, was able to move through many of their findings and recommendations at a fast pace. The last part of that, and that's roughly at that 2-year mark, 1 or 2 months after 2 years, we issue a final report, again, in full public disclosure so the community can see what exactly is going on.
I'm Harriet McCown with Reuters.
Yes.
You said you mentioned the rank and file.
Yes.
Do you talk to every member of the rank and file? And my second question is, do your recommendations have a lot to do with training?
First of all, we generally don't talk to every member of the rank and file. We talk to enough members so we feel comfortable enough that we can make some sound and comprehensive and detailed and objective findings and recommendations. I mean, I think this is a department the size of over 350, but we go on ride-alongs, we talk to them, we interview them, and the information is shared with us in a confidential manner. I apologize. What was the second question again?
The second question was, I can't remember.
Training.
Oh, yes, training.
Recommendations have to do with training, or do they have to do with policies and procedures? I know training is out-house.
Yes.
For the most part. So within policies and procedures within a department, are there in-house training programs to do or
Sure.
in terms of the rank?
The findings and recommendations can range from a whole host of things. Anything from training, which we talked about. It could be, de-escalation training. It could be use of force training. It could be procedural justice training. It could range from a whole host of things, again, depending upon the individual agency and what the deficiency is with that particular agency. Not only is a training offered, there's a review of policies, procedures. A lot of times we are assessing and analyzing data, reports, incidents that occur, identify certain patterns that would help the department to understand what are the tendencies and what are the things that they would need to do to build trust with the community. So we've ranged, our findings and recommendations and response have ranged all over the map to helping with recruitment and hiring and things like that. Yes.
How many resources, how many people will the Department of Justice allocate to North Charleston specifically? And will they be inside the police department? You said some will be out in the community, but how many people will be here for this year?
Sure. The level and the number and the size of the team varies depending upon where we are in the process. When we are in the assessment process, we'll have more people on the ground because you can only imagine a city this size that we are trying to meet with some of the key stakeholders, both inside of the department, outside of the department. We have people that are doing data reviews, analysis, reading reports, looking at policies, examining procedures, looking at training. So the team could range anywhere between 5 to 10 to 12, again, depending upon what is actually going on. The front end of it, we have more people on board. And while you mentioned that, let me just say this. We try at the beginning to make sure that we have a listening session with the community. So my expectation is that sometime within roughly about 3 weeks from now, that we will coordinate having a local listening session here in North Charleston so we can hear from the community. And these things do inform our assessment. I think you're here.
Andrew Knapp from Cooks and Courier.
Oh, hi.
Mr. Nettle, you mentioned that you've heard the community calls. One of those calls from members of the community and some civil rights organizations was for a pattern or practice investigation by the Justice Department. Obviously, this is not. And some of those organizations, even after this was announced, have continued to call for that. Right. How does this review satisfy them?
Well, you have to talk to them about whether it satisfies or not, right? But what I can say is this. I think it is, I think that, I'm glad you asked that question. I want to say this, and then I will get specifically to your question. Well, this is democracy, right? This is how democracy works. There was a tragedy, there was a call from the community, and the government heard it, all right? Now, what will happen is that, I would think that, the beauty of this is it's a transparent report. And, the community will get to decide whether the report went far enough. And the community will get to decide whether the government goes far enough in adopting the report. At the conclusion of that, if they're still not happy, which, that's entirely their right, they can come back and say, look, we asked for a pattern of practice. We didn't get it. We did the COPS review, and the COPS review has not been adhered to, and then they can push forward on that again. So I don't think that this in no way precludes that from happening, but my hope is that once they see the type of report that's done and the investigation that's done, and they've got an opportunity to assess the report and assess the response from North Charleston government, that hopefully they will find it here. But I really do want to say, this is democracy. We've got the freedom we've got the press here, and that's partly your job, right? So at the end of this, when all this comes out, it's going to be y'all's job to report to the community so the community can make an informed decision and report what they say. Yeah.
So when you say that, are you also, it would be a jump to say the federal indictment that happened last week also, is that democracy also?
That shows the commitment that both my office individually and the Department of Justice. Now, I can't comment on that case, right? He's presumed innocent until it's been adjudicated. But what you can take from that is that me personally and the Department of Justice has a extreme commitment to civil rights, and we take this very seriously. We moved on that, and I'm proud of what we've done thus far.
Can I ask a question for you, please?
Sure.
Mr. Ray.
Yeah.
Art Strick, WCBD.
Yes.
What would be considered a drastic recommendation?
Wow. I've never been asked that one. I don't think most of the recommendations are based upon what would take place in a contemporary, modern police department. Use of force is one. So a use of force recommendation could be that you improve training, that you change your training. So there's. I don't see this as a real drastic. Now, with some departments, what becomes drastic depends upon the topic. Some departments, it may be a resource issue. That may be drastic. If it's not just an issue of training, what the officers are doing, but issues related to equipment that will help them to be effective, and there's a resource issue with that could appear to be drastic. So I guess a long way around me saying, having been in this business for 30 years, I haven't seen anything that is drastic, but I believe a lot of that is in the eye of the beholder.
Mr. Ray, Lauren Thomas with WCBD in Columbia. Can you talk a little bit about how long your department has been around, as well as how many reviews you all have completed?
Sure. As I started the conversation out, the collaborative reform process itself started in 2011, 2012, so it's been around roughly about 4 years. It is a very extensive process, is very resource intensive, and it started with Las Vegas, and it started regarding a pattern of use of force incidents that the chief actually reached out to the COPS office and asked if they could help. And that collaborative reform process is further along than any of it. In fact, that's the only one that is complete right now. And the results of that is very well known nationwide. It's not uncommon for law enforcement chiefs, commanders, et cetera, to go online and read that report and take some of the recommendations from that report. And I need to say this just really quickly. This is not just for, assessing and looking at North Charleston in terms of the things that they can change. What we glean from this is that every time we do one of these, we come up with practices, best practices that the field can use. So I get chiefs and citizens going online, reading those reports saying, maybe my department should consider doing this. Maybe my department should consider doing that. So that's another benefit in doing this collaborative reform process.
Because of the 11th department, is there a singular factor affecting all of these departments that you guys are noticing? Is there something that stands out in particular that maybe this department will have in common with all the other departments being investigated?
I think what we typically find in most of the departments is usually recommendations on issues related to accountability. And accountability is, those accountability measures, supervision, accountability measures, what are you doing with use of force? Is there a level of citizen oversight? Is there a level of citizen involvement? That's the basis of it. And this should not be a surprise, because this, again, reverts back to building trust. It reverts back to a city saying, I want to know what my department is doing. you know, and I want to know that it works. And that's where usually these center around. But as I said, they have run the gamut in terms of the findings and recommendations.
You had mentioned it's going to take resources. How much will this cost the Justice Department put together?
That ranges depending upon the recommendations, but my guess is anywhere between 300,000 to 600,000. That's a really rough guess.
That's just for the 2-year.
Yes. Yes.
Can you tell us why? We know why they wanted to be part of the program because they applied for it. Why did the DOJ accept their application?
We accepted the application for those things that I said because our assessment is we want to know if they can do this. When we're here and we're on the ground and we're not just being heard by by reporters and by executive staff, we want to know. We want the rank and file officers to know that there's a commitment to implementing these recommendations. We want the community to know that there's a commitment to implementing these, and we think that they have the formula to be able to do that. And that's what I mean by police leadership. There's been a commitment. I have been in consultation with the chief since Christmas. And talking about, are they suitable? Are they correct? Is this the right process for them? And that, when I talk about the continuum of police service, continuum of services that the Department of Justice has, that's what I'm talking about. Is the right one? Is it more of a targeted critical response, or is it something comprehensive? And after a great deal of discussing with the mayor, the chief, and a number of people, and we did get some input from the community as well. We had team members here that went to community members. This is what we thought would best suit the needs of this community at this time.
You finished the Las Vegas study. What was the big takeaway from that the first thing you were done?
The big takeaway from the Las Vegas study was a couple things. One is training was key. Two was to have the data, to look at the data. Some departments, you get so busy doing things, you don't have the time to do data and analysis and draw a picture of what you're actually seeing. They had a high incidence of officer-involved shooting, I believe, with unarmed young men, and they had a spike in that. The positive thing about the Las Vegas report, and you can look at that again online, is that after they implemented a number of these recommendations, everything from training to peer-to-peer consultation, to looking at the data, looking at the analyses, changing policies, changing procedures, they did see a sharp decrease in the number of those incidents occurring.
For every agency that's accepted, I'm just curious how many agencies ever get turned down. Sorry, it has to be a quick answer.
We have not turned down any agency at this particular time. What we have done, though, is that through our process, they may not be suitable. It may not be something that's suitable for collaborative reform. It may be something that is more suitable for just technical assistance. It may be just a matter of having someone come in and do training, having someone just review a policy, or it may be a little broader, and we call it critical response, where we do a more comprehensive look at a particular issue in an agency.
Okay, we're going to take the last question.
Policies and practices. What is the difference between this review and our policies and practices?
Sure. First, it's voluntary. And the way that this is framed out is similar to how a pattern and practice would be done. It is styled after that, an assessment, having experts come in, review the deficiencies. The difference is, in short, is that the pattern and practice is looking at constitutional violations. And we are looking at more systemically wide at an agency, focus a lot of times on those accountability measures, but our threshold is not the constitutional violations. That's what the pattern and practice is looking at.
This summer.
Sure.
Will that request still be considered, looked at, or does it have to get in line behind this action now?
Yeah, it's a very dynamic process that we have. We're constantly looking at, analyzing every agency that we go to. And as the U.S. Attorney mentioned, just because we're here, that doesn't mean that something like that would be precluded. But that is an assessment that the U.S. Attorney's Office would have to make. Department of Civil Rights.
Last question was Andrew here.
No.
I don't believe I've heard Walter Scott's name mentioned today. how does his death, how it was handled, fit into this?
Sure. And it's for us to be here a lot of times, there's usually, a catastrophic incident, a major incident, one of those very controversial situations that happens in a community. And that's usually the catalyst. But, I must say that the agencies that respond by saying, not only are we going to deal with that particular incident, but we're going to open ourselves up for review as an entire department, we think is a healthy approach. But I think that served as a catalyst, the starting point as to why we're here.
So, does it fit into the review at all?
We don't investigate individual incidents. However, there's certain incidents that have occurred that will help to inform our assessment. So we will glean things from there that will help inform our system-wide assessment, but we won't be looking at that in particular. All right, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. We have hard copies of the press release, but I have all of your contact information, so you should have received it already. But if you want hard copies here,